Wow. Good morning and welcome to White Bear Unitarian Universalist Church. It's good to be together, a community of youth, adults, and children sharing the values of courage, reverence, and compassion. I'm Jillian Lampert. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a member of our board of directors. If you have a request for today's meditation, please place it in the bowl or in the chat box before the opening hymn. A special welcome to those joining us for the first time. We're glad you're here. Please fill out a guest card to let us know more about you, either by finding the link in the Zoom chat box or by finding a yellow card right outside at the Welcome Center. Our summer program for children and youth will be happening during the 10 a.m. services this summer. After the service, we ask that you wait until the doors have opened to the social hall to enter that sacred space. Then during social hour, folks will have multiple options. People of all ages are invited to stop by the 4 different centers around the social hall to see what the youth have been up to. The art, social, soul work, story, and ritual practice are the centers there. Please feel free to engage the prompts, create, and play at each center. For the usual 20-minute small group conversations, please sit at one of the 2 tables in the middle of the room. Your group may decide once it gathers to go outside or to a different space in the church. And as always, we'll have the cyber social hour starting at 11 o'clock. Join us for a community potluck on July 20th at 5:30 p.m., followed by a youth game night from 6:30 to 7:30 for youth entering grades 7 through 12. We will also have a parent circle and childcare for young children available from 6:30 to 7:30. Sign up in the atrium right outside or through the chat in the e-news to bring a dish or help to set up or clean up. Nursery care is back. The nursery reopened today for children ages 6 months through 3 years. Registration is required. Please visit the website or stop by the nursery after the service. Our new fiscal year began on July 1st, so this is your friendly reminder for those of you who pay their pledges through automatic payments to log into Breeze to make sure that you have updated your account so that you are no longer paying on last year's pledge in addition to this year's pledge. You can do this by logging into Breeze and clicking on any of the several options that mention Give Now, Give a Gift, Manage Recurring Giving, then click on Manage Recurring Giving to make that update. Our scheduled pulpit guests were not able to preach today due to COVID. Reverend Roger is filling in. We hope to reschedule Reverend Shay McKay and Reverend Diana McLean later in the summer. Welcome to our church. Together we grow our souls and serve the world in love.
Come into this place which we make holy by our presence. Come in with all your vulnerabilities and strengths, fears and anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where we can touch and be touched, heal and be healed, forgive and be forgiven. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, the human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected. Come into this place. Together, we make it a holy place. I'm Reverend Roger, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Good morning. I I am Teal Bassett. My pronouns are she, her. In my youth, my mother always signed me up to attend a summer camp that takes small groups of young people into the Boundary Waters and beyond for extended canoeing adventures. And she continued to sign me up for this camp right up until I attended college. I learned plenty of outdoor skills, became a strong canoeer, and enjoyed most of the adventures that I experienced. These camping trips included portages. For those of you that don't know, portages are the part of the route where you walk through the woods to get to the next lake. This journey includes wearing a heavy, very heavy, uncomfortable pack and a canoe balanced precariously on your shoulders. Don't even think about swatting at those mosquitoes on your legs, because then you'll drop the canoe or at least sprain an ankle. Portages are tough, and I hated them. I hated my mother for sending me to this terrible camp that I'd never survive and I'd perish while mosquitoes overtook me. But you know what? The trail brought me where I wanted to be. With every aching step, I was still getting closer to the end, and eventually I made it. There's absolutely nothing better than looking up through the trees and seeing the shine of the next lake. There, I could wade into the water and soothe the bug bites on my legs. I'd take a nice long break and gaze out at the water, wondering what adventure we'd have here, completely forgetting that rough and perilous journey I just took. But first, I'd have to walk back across the path to traverse the rest of our gear. The second time on a portage always went a little quicker, a little easier. I knew the trail now. Let us light this chalice today in honor of those tough, unknown journeys, and that they'll eventually lead to where we want to be.
And I invite you to join in the opening words that you'll see on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Our opening hymn today is number 1003. That's in the little teal hymnal, Where Do We Come From? I invite you to rise and body your spirit wherever you are and join in singing.
As we continue to work our way back into communal singing, we'll try to split into parts on this. The first time through, let's sing it all together, all the way through, including the pesky repeats, so each line goes twice. The second time through, if part one draws you, the first line, Where Do We Come From?, join in right away on that. If part three draws you, Laura will start that 4 bars later. And if you're one of those Unitarians who won't follow anybody, you can sing 2 or 4 if you'd rather. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a little mystery.
Good morning. My name is Amy, and my pronouns are she, her. And this morning's story is a Sufi tale that can be found in Tales of the Dervishes by Idris Shah and is a version from Amir al-Afirin. It is called The Initiation of Malik Dinar. After many years of philosophical study, Malik Dinar felt the time had come to travel in search of knowledge. I will go, he said to himself, seeking the hidden teacher who is said to be my utmost self. Walking out of his house with only a few dates to eat along his journey, he came upon a dervish plodding along the dusty road. He fell into step alongside him in silence for a time. Finally, the dervish spoke. "Who are you? And where are you going?" he asked. "I am Dinar, and I have started to journey in search of the hidden teacher." "I am Fatih, and I will walk with you," said the dervish. "Can you help me find the hidden teacher?" asked Dinar. "Can I help you? Can you help me?" replied Fatih in the irritating manner of dervishes everywhere. "The hidden teacher, so they say, is within oneself. How one finds the teacher depends on what one makes of experience. This is something only partly conveyed by a companion." Eventually, they came to a tree which was creaking and swaying in the breeze. The dervish stopped, and after a moment, he said, "This tree is saying, something is hurting me. Stop a while and take it out of my side so that I may find relief." "I am in too much of a hurry," replied Dinar, "and how can a tree talk anyway?" And so on they went. After a few miles, the dervish said, "When we were by the tree, I thought I smelled honey. Perhaps it was wild bees." "Well, if that's true," said Dinar, "let us hurry back so that we may collect the honey which we could eat and sell for our journey." "As you wish," said the dervish. When they arrived back at the tree, however, they saw that the other travelers were collecting enormous amounts of honey. "What luck we've had," they all sang. "This is enough honey to feed an entire city. We poor travelers can now become merchants. Our futures are saved." Dinar and Fatih again went on their way. Next, they came to a mountain whose slopes they heard a humming. The dervish carefully placed his ear to the ground. Then he said, "Below us, there are 1,000,000 ants building a colony. This humming is a plea for help. The ants are crying, 'Help us, help us. We have come across some strange rocks which are in our way. Help us dig them away.' Should we stop and help? Or would you rather hasten ahead?" And what do you think he said? "Ants and rocks are not any of our business, brother," said Dinar firmly, "for I am seeking the hidden teacher." "Very well," said the dervish. "Yet they do say that all things are connected, and this may have a certain connection with us." Well, Dinar took no notice of the man's mumblings, and so they went on their way again. The pair stopped for the night, and Dinar noticed that he was missing his knife. "I must have dropped it near the anthill," he said. And so the next morning they retraced their steps. When they arrived back at the anthill, they could find no sign of Dinar's knife. Instead, they saw a group of people covered in mud resting beside a giant pile of gold coins. "These," said the people, "are a hidden treasure which we just dug up. When we were on the road, an old dervish called to us and said, 'Dig at this spot, and you will find that which is rocks to some is gold to others.' In fact, that dervish looked a little like you," they said. Well, Dinar cursed his luck. "If only we had stopped, you and I both would have been very rich right now." So Dinar and Fatih continued their travels to a beautiful riverbank. As they waited for a ferry, a fish rose several times to the surface and mouthed to them as if trying to tell them something. "This fish," said the dervish, "is sending us a message. It says, 'I have swallowed a stone. Give me an herb to eat, and I will be able to bring it up and find relief. Travelers, have mercy.'" But at that very moment, the boat appeared, and Dinar, impatient to get ahead, pushed the dervish ahead onto the boat. "Let's go." Before long, they reached the opposite bank and settled in for the night. In the morning, they were sitting and drinking tea when the ferryman appeared. "Last night had been his most fortunate one ever," he said. "I was about to go home at my usual time," recounted the ferryman, "when I saw the two of you on the opposite bank, and I decided to make just one more trip for the night. When I returned to the shore, I saw the oddest thing. I saw a fish who had hoisted itself up onto the bank, and it was trying to swallow a piece of a plant. So I gave the fish the plant, and up came the most beautiful and flawless stone I have ever seen. This diamond is incalculable in value. I am now a very wealthy man indeed." Well, at this, Dinar was infuriated. "You knew about all of these treasures by means of some hidden perception, yet you did not tell me about any of them. Is that really true companionship? My luck was bad enough before we met, but at least I would not have known of all of the possibilities hidden in the trees and the hills and fish and all the things." But no sooner had he said these words than he felt a mighty wind went sweeping through his very soul, for he knew that the very reverse of what he had said was the truth. The dervish touched Dinar lightly on the shoulder and smiled a compassionate smile. "Now, brother, you will find that you can learn by experience." And from that day forward, indeed he did. Malik Dinar became known as one of the wisest dervishes, companion exemplar, the man who arrived. We're going to sing our children on to their religious education class today. I invite you to rise and join me in singing number 1057, "Go Lift It Up," in the teal hymnal.
Each week we take a few moments in our worship to center ourselves on our spiritual journeys and the cares of people near and far. This moment is a reminder that centering is a key component of every spiritual journey. Today we gather together in this space with about 75 people and online with 71 households. Take a moment to ground yourselves in the place where you are, whether it's in this space or somewhere inside your house or outside. ground yourselves in your bodies, these incredible, beautiful, flawed gifts that each of us have. And then pay some attention to your interior self. This morning we hold in our hearts all those in our lives and beyond who are struggling with mental and physical illness, addiction, war, poverty, oppression. May they, or we, if we're struggling, all feel love and wholeness. May each person who is struggling feel a sense of comradeship, companionship. And we celebrate with all those near and far, perhaps ourselves, who are bursting with joy today. This morning in our congregation, we especially lift up Alan Hagstrom and pray for success that his current chemotherapy treatment will be helpful with his ongoing lymphoma. Out of the silence now together, I invite everybody wherever you are to say aloud or silently the names of people you are holding in your heart today. Amen.
Social justice issues have taken a big hit recently in Supreme Court rulings. It really highlights how important voting is to preserve our human rights and keep bending the arc towards justice. Today, our special collection is for a UU Association campaign called UU the Vote. Donations will help increase voter registration and increase voters to get to the polls on Election Day. We'll pass the donation plates now. You can also donate in 3 other ways on the WBUUC webpage. You can send a check or leave a check in the locked box right outside the front office, or you can use the text to give option on the screen. No matter how you give, please indicate the keyword vote, and thank you for your generosity in serving our world together.
Santiago by David White. The road seen, then not seen, the hillside hiding, then revealing the way you should take, the road dropping away from you as if leaving you to walk on thin air, then catching you, holding you up when you thought you would fall. And the way forward always in the end, the way that you followed, the way that you came, the way that carried you into your future, that brought you to this place. No matter that it sometimes took your promise from you, no matter that it always had to break your heart along the way, the sense of having walked from far inside yourself out into the revelation, to have risked yourself for something that seemed to stand both inside you and far beyond you, and that called you back in the end to the only road you could follow, walking as you did in your rags of love and speaking in the voice that by night became a prayer for safe arrival. So that one day you realized that what you wanted had already happened, and long ago and in the dwelling place in which you lived in before you began, and that every step along the way you had carried the heart and the mind and the promise that first set you off and then drew you on, and that you were more marvelous in your simple wish to find a way than the gilded roofs of any destination you could reach. As if all along you had thought the end point might be a city with golden towers and cheering crowds, and turning the corner at what you thought was the end of the road, you found just a simple reflection and a clear revelation beneath the face, looking back, and beneath it, another invitation, all in one glimpse, like a person or a place you had sought forever, like a broad field of freedom that beckoned you beyond, like another life and the road still stretching on.
Thank you. So that was Sprig of That. And if you're interested in talking with them and maybe getting some merchandise, they'll be in the lobby to the left after. Thank you so much for being here today. So this is a last-minute barrel sermon. I did this sermon 10 years ago in Appleton, and it's personal. It's almost all story, very meaningful to me. I felt a little indulgent, self-indulgent when I did it in Appleton, and I feel that again, but this is how it is. And I've modified it only slightly. I shortened it a bunch, and then I also just updated dates. So I was 11 years old when I first set sight on the Grand Canyon. I had seen pictures, but I was not prepared for the magnitude, the beauty, the mystery, and the sheer grandeur of it. I was lucky in that first visit that, unlike most people, I got to go beneath the rim. My family did a mule trip, so we went quite a ways down. Down, we traveled through the ages. If we'd gone all the way down, we would have gone through 1.7 billion years. The geologic story there is a story of uplift, but mostly of erosion from rain and wind and snow, ice. And then for the last, relatively little period, 60 to 70 million years, the river. Of course, I didn't understand all of this as an 11-year-old. All I knew was that it was magnificent, and I felt small in the scheme of time and space. And I would not return for 35 years, long enough to forget just how amazing it is when you see it in person. And so standing there looking out of the South Rim, I felt just as much awe as I did as an 11-year-old kid. The centerpiece of my next journey, 35 years later, was a rim-to-rim hike. Even though we divided the 24 miles into 4 days, it was still hard. At the bottom, it was over 100 degrees, because we did it in June. I experienced the grandeur again, but also this time in intimacy, in those the narrower inner canyon. And I most appreciated the play of light on the canyon walls as each day proceeded from sunrise to sunset. Well, so we made it. We were having breakfast at the North Rim Lodge the morning after arriving from this 4-day grueling hike, and the seed of a next adventure was planted at that breakfast. We were all feeling pretty good about our accomplishment, and we were not beneath bragging about it. Our server looked at us with a knowing nod and said, yeah, I did that rim-to-rim Thursday. Wait, what? In 1 day? Yeah, it turns out the person had. So we were deflated a little bit. And though the server was 25 years younger than me and in much better shape, I thought, well, that would be a pretty cool thing to do. So I said that to one of my hiking companions, Tom. Tom agreed, and we filed it away. We said, if we do it, though, let's do it in October, because it will be cooler. So we filed it away. We forgot about it except for the October part. 10 years ago, last month, the UU General Assembly was going to happen in Phoenix, and I thought to myself, hey, I'm going to be in Arizona anyway. Why not just tack on a couple days? So I said, Tom, you want to do that thing, the one rim to rim in a day? Sure. So there we were, knowing how essential it would be to cover as much ground as possible before the sun burst forth into the inner canyon. We set out at 2 a.m. from the South Rim. Our task that day was to hike 24 miles, down 4,500 feet, up 6,000 feet. So down we headed, headlamps clicked on, I was in the lead, and I set a blistering pace. All was well, except my stomach felt a little bit off. I knew I should eat, but the Cliff Bars and the trail mix, didn't sound good. Well, after getting water and resting for just a tiny bit at Phantom Ranch at the bottom, Tom took over the lead, and inspired by my pace, he took off, and I quickly realized I'm not going to be able to keep up. But I elected not to tell Tom. I just would try harder. Soon the sun rose enough to shine into the inner canyon, and the rest of our journey, we would be bathed in sunlight. The temperature that day reached 107. So 17 miles into the hike, we took an extended, really the first extended break at a campground, a rare place of shade and trees, which we were really grateful for. And here I need to give a bit of a warning that this is going to get a little graphic, starting with the diarrhea that hit me at that spot. Luckily, there were pit toilets, and I elected once again not to share what was going on with me, with Tom. So onward we trudged. 7 miles and 4,200 vertical feet to go. Lots of daylight left, so we could slow the pace a little bit, take more breaks. I was increasingly worried about dehydration, and so I pounded the water. As the trail got steeper, the pace of my physical decline quickened. After struggling along for 4 miles, my body decided I was done. I fell down to the side of the trail. I stuck as much of my head under a bush as I could. My legs were sticking literally out into the trail. And there I was, close to running out of water. Tom thought, I'm just going to carry both of our packs, go up. I know in a mile there'll be Supai Tunnel, which has some water. I'll get water, leave the packs there. You can rest. And this is what happened. And this is when the vomiting started. So evidently Tom was pretty worried about me, because when he came back, I noticed he had run. I felt a little better, so I hobbled towards Supai Tunnel. About 50 yards from the tunnel, I collapsed again. I could not make it. I couldn't even crawl the last 50 yards. Threw up again. Tom, 10 years my senior, must have been exhausted by the hiking and the caring for me and running after he had already hiked 22 rugged miles. And I can only imagine that he was thinking, I'll just wish him well and, go get the cabin at the top and see you there. But he was concerned about his friend. He was determined to do whatever it took to get me out of that canyon. So he recruited some help at the tunnel, and he came back those 50 yards with several helpers, and with people on each side. I sort of half walked, half was carried to the tunnel, and there I lay down and fell asleep. So at that point, Tom realized that we might be spending the evening in the whole night in the canyon, and that it would get down to the low 40s at that elevation. And so he started collecting clothing for us to wear, spare clothing from other hikers. And he also invited a few hikers who were going on to notify the rangers up at the North Rim that someone was having a problem. And 2 people he recruited, named Dana and Myra, said that they would stay with us no matter what, and it turned out they meant that. So I dozed off, on and off for a while. At one point I remember Dana saying, I think the Park Service charges $1,500 if they have to haul you out. So I thought, okay, then I have 2 options. One option is to stay the night. The other is to somehow find the energy to get out, because I'm not paying $1,500. So I found the energy to start again. We had 2 miles and 1,500 vertical feet to go. A little way up the trail, I threw up again. At that point, 2 rangers arrived, so Tom's getting the message out worked. They did a quick check of me, concluded that I was suffering from heat exhaustion. I thought the problem all along was dehydration. And sure, I was dehydrated by that point, but the initial problem was heat exhaustion. It turns out the combination of the heat and the fact that your body needs energy, food, to handle the heat, well, that was too much for me. And so, what a pity that I hadn't realized this earlier, because we had spent miles hiking next to a river, a creek with really cold water. And I could have just put my body into that river and probably been fine. But where we were at this point, no running water around. I now realize how lucky I was that this heat exhaustion didn't cross the threshold into heat stroke. So with heat exhaustion, your body's desperately trying to lower the temperature. With heat stroke, your body gives up, your temperature skyrockets, and sometimes it fries your brain. I'll never know how close I came. After the latest round of puking, I felt good enough to push on, so accompanied by Tom, the two rangers, and Dana and Myra, I plodded along, almost without stopping, to the North Rim. Near the end, I asked the rangers about that $1,500 fee. They said, "Oh no, we don't charge that." Now you tell me. With tearful and profuse thanks from Tom, and as much thanks as I could muster, we said how grateful we were, and the Rangers and Dana and Myra went on their way, strangers that we certainly will never see again, but who made a real difference. Well, after checking into a cabin and being visited by paramedics, I got sick a few more times, fell asleep, slept fitfully. My adventure was over. Sometimes the paths we travel are muddy and rough. They always contain lessons. I had many obvious and hidden teachers on that treacherous rim-to-rim journey. I learned many things. One thing I learned is that I am more susceptible to hubris and to a need to be macho than I thought. It was hubris to let a 20-something person, incredibly fit, share about their rim-to-rim in a day and think, I could do that. It was hubris to think that doing that in June was a good idea. It was hubris to set too fast of a pace, and it was idiotic to keep these struggles to myself until I collapsed on the trail. I learned that it pays to be wiser about adventures I take on. I don't want to live life like a life of extreme caution. I need some adventures, some tests, but some adventures are not worth the risk. I would have felt really dumb if I had died on that trail. And evidently, I shared that insight with Tom about every minute for the last 5 hours of the trip. I learned again that people are amazing, beginning with Tom. What he did, not only getting himself through this ordeal, but helping me in such intricate ways, was just a marvelous, miraculous thing. He actually created a sense of community among this whole hiking group. How amazing. Also, that so many total strangers helped out. It did take a village to get me out of that canyon. I learned that with a lot of help from friends and strangers, sometimes we can persevere through tough things. And I learned yet again that this planet is a wondrous, wondrous place of beauty and awe. Billions of years in the making. I remember near the top, I looked back and there was just an incredible view of the canyon in the late summer light. Even in my adult state, it took my breath away. This is the reality of life on this planet. We live in this breathtaking, amazing, beautiful place. It should take our breath away. And not just in the Grand Canyon, but in our backyard and in the nearby park. This breathtaking beauty is everywhere. And how we respond to this beauty is maybe the greatest spiritual question of all. A person who is awake in the Buddhist sense sees and cherishes and strives to protect this beauty. And have you too finally figured out what beauty is for? Mary Oliver asks. And have you changed your life? She adds. And have you too finally figured out what beauty is for? And have you changed your life? Those are good questions. Really good questions. Our closing hymn today is number 1020, Wayoya, and I invite you to rise in body or in spirit wherever you are. It's in the small teal hymnal. Here again, these words from David White. As if all along you had thought the end point might be a city with golden towers and cheering crowds, and turning the corner at what you thought was the end of the road, you found just a simple reflection and a clear revelation beneath the face looking back, and beneath it, another invitation all in one glimpse, like a person or a place you had sought forever, like a broad field of freedom that beckoned you beyond, like another life in the road still stretching on. May you go in peace, friends, and travel well.